What's up, heathens? How ya doing? Tonight we have a video from a channel called Deflate,
Rational explanations have never been a strength of atheists in the first place,
who is going to make the argument that atheism is illogical and inconsistent because it doesn't provide some kind of absolute or objective meaning to the universe and to ourselves. If you're interested in this particular topic, then please stay tuned. He has this idea that atheism doesn't provide any kind of meaning to anybody, and anybody that creates their own meaning is actually being internally inconsistent with atheism, because obviously atheism means that you're a nihilist. So just to start off this video tonight, I want to preface by saying that atheism doesn't have the motive, the inclination to give meaning to anything. It's just a singular position on a single question, and that's whether or not you believe that a God exists. If you don't, if you express that non-belief in a deity, you are atheist. It says nothing else about the universe, meaning to the universe, meaning for yourself or purpose. Apologists in general, regardless of the religion, that like to impose this on atheism is really doing kind of an equivocation fallacy. What they're equivocating atheism to is basically religion. Religion has the goal of providing you with meaning and purpose in your life. This guy here is completely sure of himself, and so let's figure out what he's got to say.
I don't know how many times I've come across atheists who say that even though our universe is meaningless, one can still lead a meaningful life. Statements such as these sound nice for sure, but sounding nice is not quite the same thing as making sense.
I would agree. Sounding nice is not the same thing as making sense. Like, for instance, Christianity, face value, sounds nice. If you do bad shit, you can just pray for Jesus to forgive you and you're fine. For transformation purposes in your own personal life, it sounds nice on its surface, but that doesn't mean that it's true. I would say that you could easily turn this around on yourself there, bud. Yes, you can, and people do give their lives meaning. They themselves give their life meaning and purpose. Even Christians out there, which this guy is a Christian, they give themselves meaning in their life. They give themselves all the same meaning in life as far as Christianity goes, because the meaning of life, the purpose of life in Christianity, at least as far as we can tell from our daily Bible podcast that we post every Tuesday at around 9:30 a.m., is to pretty much serve and praise God. That's the ultimate or absolute meaning to life for a Christian. At least that's what it seems for type of Christianity that normally puts out videos of this nature. I don't mean to generalize the entire Christian population, the entire demographic of Christians as adhering to this one thing, but for the purposes and the context of this particular video, that is the purpose to life that he's talking about.
And since atheists usually take pride in their alleged commitment to rationality, a fishy statement such as, "There is no objective meaning to the universe, but you can still create your own meaning," certainly deserves some scrutinizing. That's exactly what this video is about, and what you'll learn by the end of it is that any atheist talk about creating your own meaning in an otherwise meaningless universe is nothing but a grandiose exercise in self-deception.
I don't understand how it's self-deception, and this is not the only guy that I've heard this from. I've heard Cameron Bertuzzi of Capturing Christianity express the same thing too, that you're just deluding yourself into thinking that you have a purpose when the universe is meaningless or purposeless. And I would say that just because the universe doesn't have a meaning to it does not intrinsically mean that life that exists within that universe is inherently meaningless or purposeless. You give yourself purpose in life, and like I said, even Christians do that, doing everything in the name of God, because that's what the Old Testament teaches. If you don't do everything with God first in your mind, then you're going to get fucked up by God. And so you have to understand where he's coming from. He's coming from the position, you can't have your own meaning in life. You have to be given meaning. You have to be given purpose to even live in this universe. And apparently the only way that he can rationalize that is through his religion. I mean, even that is him subjectively giving himself a purpose and meaning in life. Atheists are not inconsistent or illogical or anything like that. Just because we accept all meaning and purpose to our lives is subjective and is determined by us.
So let's start with a simple observation. Generally speaking, on atheism, the natural world is all there is. Reality is ultimately made up of matter, and everything you see can be broken down into the particles of physics. This, of course, includes you as a human being. According to atheists, you're just a somewhat more complex arrangement of matter and thus only slightly different from a brick stone. Well, okay, unlike a brick stone, you're at least a living organism made up of cells with the ability to reproduce, but don't ever think that you're somehow special.
We're not special in the sense that the universe is created for us. Life in general is rare and special throughout the universe. Generally say that atheists consider life to be not special whatsoever is kind of ridiculous. Only thing that atheism considers is whether or not a God exists. Apologists like this like to try to think through what no God existing actually entails. He's trying to suggest that atheism means that there's literally no purpose or meaning to life because we're just inorganic material. He's trying to think that out, and what he gets to is a purely materialistic worldview. But the problem is that not all atheists out there are materialists. It's very possible for you to be an atheist, but also not be a materialist. In his mind, it leads to absolute meaningless in the universe. That means that you cannot create your own meaning to life.
Just like the mosquito annoyingly buzzing over your head at night or the mouse roaming your backyard, you're nothing but a collection of randomly mutated genes and biomolecules which natural selection graciously picked in the course of history.
I disagree with the anthropomorphization of natural selection as being some kind of conscious thing that selects things. It's a natural process that has natural causes to it. Just because we've identified it and give it a name doesn't mean that it has some kind of consciousness to select things. To say that we are nothing but these organic chemicals is really denying a lot of biological facts, like the idea of a central nervous system, because that's also another thing that you have to consider when you're thinking about organic life that exists on Earth. Central nervous systems can definitely develop to a point where we can give ourselves purpose and meaning, where we evolve to a point that we care about purpose and meaning. Taking an idea and he's extrapolating out from that central core truth. He's making all of these baseless claims piled on top of it. It's exactly what conspiracy theorists do. That would include creationists, flat earthers, and all of them. Everything that he just said was a baseless claim other than we are composed of organic materials that have been through the process of natural selection and we have come to our present state.
And that's because at the bottom layer of reality is just raw matter. Ever since our purposeless universe inexplicably popped into existence with neither cause nor goal.
That's not at all what the scientific theory of the Big Bang is. It was an inflation of the universe. We don't say that it inexplicably came about or happened. Where this guy and I disagree is what caused the inflation of the universe. He would say that it was God and that only God could cause the inflation of the universe, while I think that natural processes could have definitely caused the inflation of the universe.
Smoke weed every day.
Everything that we've experienced up until this point has a natural cause behind it. There's a natural process that explains it. For the beginning of the universe, the inflation of the universe, to have some kind of special supernatural event that suspended the natural order of reality in order for it to happen just is not congruent with what we see in nature now. Because we have not proven any kind of suspension of the natural order of reality, then it's highly unlikely that a suspension of the natural order of reality happened at one point in the past and has never happened again.
That universe is slowly but steadily running out of energy until it will die the so-called heat death, which will mean that at some time in the future, neither movement nor life will be possible anymore, as the universe will return to the randomness, nothingness, and meaninglessness from which it emerged in the first place.
Well, no, that's not what the heat death of the universe is. The heat death of the universe is moving to maximum entropy, pretty much an equilibrium state. That's what it's moving to. The heat death of the universe doesn't mean that the universe just dissipates and disappears and returns to the quote-unquote nothingness that you think was at the beginning of the universe. Because when he says it, he means absolutely nothing. Scientifically, that doesn't exist. The nothing that we think of still has an electrical charge in it, still has that energy. He thinks that the heat death of the universe means that the universe just sort of dissipates, disappears. I don't understand why he thinks that a maximum state of disorder is the exact same thing as a maximum state of order.
So far, so good. I'm fully with the atheist hypothesis. But now comes the not so subtle atheist sleight of hand. Because instead of actually being consistent and affirming that the meaninglessness of the universe necessarily implies the meaninglessness of his or her own existence, the atheist now simply turns around and claims that you can nevertheless create your own subjective meaning. You may rally, for example, for some cause of social justice, devote yourself to animal rights, donate to the Richard Dawkins Foundation, or simply enjoy yourself and eat ice cream while sunbathing at the beach.
What is wrong with this guy?
I don't know, honey. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with him.
I mean, he creates his own subjective meaning too.
He does.
Ice cream at the beach is fucking delicious. What's wrong with that?
I would highly disagree with anybody that says my purpose in life is to eat ice cream on the fucking beach. There's nothing wrong with it inherently. I just disagree with that purpose or meaning in life. All of those things, there's nothing wrong with devoting yourself to those things. And I don't understand how that's inconsistent with the atheist position. He would say worldview, but atheism isn't a worldview.
But he also acts like we can only donate to animal rights or the Richard Dawkins Foundation.
I do hate how Richard Dawkins always gets brought up. He's their favorite thing to go to. The apologists have heard a few popular names, and so they immediately go to those names in order to do it.
I guess my point is that atheists can also do charity work in conjunction with religious organizations. The peanut butter thing that we did for the Haitian orphans, that was through a religious organization. You know, my parents used to run the dinner thing that they would provide dinner once a week to homeless people. That was through a Catholic church. And just, I guess I don't understand why they think that atheists can't do things in coordination with religious people. We can work together.
I'm fairly certain that what he's getting at is the whole idea behind stealing from God that Frank Turek has out. Basically, having those kind of good intentions or those purposes or meanings is really stealing from a religious worldview.
That's stupid.
It is very stupid. I think this guy, though, was really only giving a few examples of different things that you could devote yourself to. Hopefully he gets to what he means by an objective or absolute meaning to life.
I mean, I don't know, but Richard Dawkins ain't it for me.
It will provide you with an island of meaning in the vast ocean of our universe's meaninglessness. As I said in the beginning, while this may sound beautiful, it's not only rationally inconsistent to the highest degree, but also a ridiculous form of self-deception. Because if the material universe is all there is, the notion that you can actually create meaning, which is of course an immaterial concept, makes as much sense as to think that you can throw a bucket into a dried up well to pull water from it.
Basically, what he's trying to explain here is that because we consider the universe to not have an ultimate, absolute meaning or purpose behind it, it's irrational for us to create an immaterial meaning or purpose. Apparently, immaterial things cannot exist in a materialistic sort of world where you don't accept that the supernatural exists. Thoughts are not fucking supernatural. I don't know where you're getting this concept. The vast category of immaterial things are all supernatural things. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, and all of that, they are immaterial unless, it's sadness and you can actually hold that bucket of ice cream in your hand. Just because they're immaterial does not mean that they're supernatural. Supernatural means that it's above nature. You can create an immaterial thing within the natural material world, then it can still exist in there. What he's trying to do is apply a generalization fallacy on the idea that all atheists are materialists and that a materialist worldview means that no immaterial things can exist, when that's simply not what we experience. And just because we have thoughts, feelings, and emotions does not inherently mean that the supernatural exists. You have not connected those things.
Even if you could magically create meaning in a materialistic and objectively meaningless universe, this subjectively created meaning of yours would be entirely pointless. For if ultimately nothing matters, then whatever you contrive to be your purpose won't matter either at the end of the day.
I mean, I really don't think that anybody says that our created meanings or anything in this life doesn't matter. This is where he equivocates atheism with nihilism. Because apparently to him, unless the entire universe has a meaning, you yourself can't have a meaning. And therefore, everything's meaningless. There's no point in doing anything. He basically goes to the point of saying that atheism is nihilism, that they are the exact same things, but they're not. Just because you're not convinced that a God exists does not inherently mean that you are a nihilist or that you find no meaning in anything that you do. There are people out there that are nihilistic. If you don't find that there's any kind of meaning to anything you do, that's up to you. As long as you're not hurting other people, I think it's totally fine to be a nihilist. I disagree with you because I find a lot of meaning in everything that I do. I constantly get messages from people talking about how I've positively impacted their life with the content that I make and the other social media posts that I put out. I've been told that I make people not feel so alone in the highly religious areas that they're in. I know that what I'm doing has meaning, but he would say that I'm being inconsistent. That would just be him equivocating atheism with nihilism and claiming that I'm not holding to an atheistic worldview.
Let me illustrate this. Imagine we lived in a world in which healthy food does not exist, but everything we take in would cause us to become sick. Now, in such a world, you are of course free to talk about creating for yourself a healthy diet. But that would not change the fact that whatever so-called diet you pick, it will make you sick, just like any other food you could take in. In the same way, to say that the universe is ultimately meaningless, but that you can still pick some cute little diet of meaning for yourself is nothing short of delusional.
I would disagree that it's not delusional. Also, your analogy sucks ass. Materialism isn't like all of the food in the world. And then you're trying to pick out a healthy diet that's not going to make you vomit. Of course, you always vomit because it's shitty ass food. Atheism is only one answer to one question, and that's whether or not you believe that a God exists. It's more or less like choosing one particular type of broccoli that makes you vomit. Oh, well, then I can just choose a different fucking broccoli that doesn't make me fucking vomit. Okay? It's not that all the food is bad. It's just that one broccoli grower doesn't know how to grow fucking broccoli. It still comes down to the fact that it's not inconsistent to find meaning in your life when you don't believe that a God exists.
By the way, you don't have to take my word for it. Check out Friedrich Nietzsche or Jean-Paul Sartre, who are two of history's most important atheist philosophers. Nietzsche said that once you do away with God, the world will basically turn into something like an abandoned, dark, haunted marketplace where no one wants to be as it's been completely drained of meaning. He truly lived what he preached as he spent the last years of his life in a madhouse. Similarly, Sartre, in his play No Exit, depicted reality without God, ironically enough, as hell, and affirmed that life was absurd, but that we should just get on with it somehow, I guess.
So, yeah, those two were nihilists, and you're saying that that's representative of atheism. I really don't think that you understand the sentiments that they were really trying to get across. I'm not going to try to explain the complex philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. You're talking about two different things as if they were the same thing. That's how it's a fallacy. Like, I really don't care what kind of quotes you can pull out of God's ass. It doesn't really matter what somebody else says. I can still disagree with them about their conclusions on something.
Another atheist philosopher, Loyal Rue, confessed that even though all of reality is utterly meaningless, we cannot actually live this way, as this would lead to something of an existential collapse. And so he blatantly suggested that we should just deceive ourselves and propagate what he called the noble lie that meaning exists even though it really doesn't.
The only thing that I can really surmise about this particular thing, because they don't have somebody else that tells them what their meaning or purpose in life is, that means that you're lying to yourself. I really don't understand that. It's not me lying to myself. It's just me accepting that I'm dictating what the purpose and meaning of my life is. I don't know why I have to have somebody else dictate that.
As I said in the beginning, when atheists talk about creating meaning, they are simply deluding themselves. It's probably only a minority who, like Dr. Rue, actually admit that meaning can only be affirmed by an act of straightforward self-deception.
I mean, sure, there probably are some atheists out there that would think of it as self-deception to give yourself meaning. I don't understand how that particular fact really weighs in on whether or not it actually is self-deception. He's just admitting that, oh, well, most atheists aren't nihilists. Okay, yeah, fuck yeah, I agree. Most atheists are not fucking nihilists.
But this doesn't change the fact that self-delusion is exactly what's going on here. Having said all this, there is one last thing which needs to be mentioned here, which further adds insult to injury. Think about this. If objective meaning doesn't exist, how come the atheist comes to the meaningful conclusion that this is so? See, the sentence, "there is no objective meaning to the universe," is itself a statement that claims to carry objective meaning, and yet the proposition is that the universe is devoid of such meaning.
I think it's really hilarious that he's talking about self-delusion.
Yeah, it is kind of hilarious that he's talking about self-delusion.
Not very self-aware, is he?
He does not seem to be self-aware, no. What he's literally talking about is absolute meaning to the universe, right? Not objective meaning. You know, devoid of all human influence or anything like that. It is absolutely like the meaning to the universe and everything like that. But he's still operating under the assumption that just because there's no absolute meaning or purpose to the universe, that inherently means that there's no way that we can have any kind of meaning or purpose.
Which means that the atheist's denial of objective meaning is nothing but a self-contradiction and therefore complete nonsense.
You know what's fucking complete nonsense? I find the Bible to be complete nonsense. Because there's so many contradictory things in the Bible that it literally makes no sense to me. Like, it makes no sense to me why people would read the Old Testament and not come away thinking, wow, that God guy's an asshole. I wouldn't want to worship him. I really don't understand how people can't walk away from the Old Testament and think God's an asshole. We have a complex enough central nervous system to where we can come up with immaterial things that only exist in our thoughts. Other organisms can do that too. If you have a complex enough central nervous system, they can have immaterial things as well. Just because we affirm that material things exist and we have no evidence of the supernatural does not mean that immaterial things can't exist in this universe. Immaterial things are not considered supernatural things. So it just kind of seems like you're equivocating and doing these equivalence fallacies all over this video.
Christianity, on the other hand, can coherently affirm meaning as it postulates a divine mind who has infused the entire universe as well as human existence with meaning and value.
How exactly does he do that? Oh, just by stating it in a book? I mean, I've got a book over here where I could write down your purpose and meaning in life if you want me to. Honestly, I think that it's rather sad if you have to look to somebody outside of yourself to dictate your own purpose and meaning in life. Feel like you're giving up a portion of your self-control, like your ability to govern yourself. You're giving up a portion of your freedom to allow some dictator god to tell you what your purpose and meaning is. Now, regardless of whether or not you get that from a book, you're still the ones that are dictating it. You're the ones that are giving up freely the freedom to have your own meaning and purpose in life and allowing somebody else, not God, 1900 or so years ago, dictate your purpose in life.
This is why it's not only the more rational option than atheism, but also the one that is more practically relevant and actually livable.
I feel like both positions are livable and practical to have. While I disagree with the choice to allow God to dictate your meaning and purpose in life, that doesn't inherently mean that it's wrong, and it also doesn't mean that you can't live in a practical way like that. He's going to the extreme end of this and saying, well, atheists lying to themselves is not practical, reasonable, or logical. He's got a lot of baseless assumptions built upon this that are assumed because he thinks that atheism is nihilism. Every single part of his rationalization for this is just simply wrong.
Does any of what I said prove that atheism is false and that God exists? No. Or does it suggest that all atheists are miserable? No. What it does show, however, is that atheists who hold onto their self-contradictory notion of meaning are rather like castaways who hope to be rescued by catching a deflated life belt.
I don't get that analogy either. I guess because you think that atheism can't provide meaning, and so therefore, it's like that analogy. You're assuming that the purpose of atheism is to give the universe or yourself meaning. And this comes all the way back around to the fact that he has to place atheism on the same level as his religion. And that's simply not what atheism is. It's just a non-belief in a god or gods. That's it.
We talk about meaning all the time. And if you're watching this video, you're likely to care about meaning yourself. Now, this intuition of ours that our lives are actually meaningful is fully expected and no surprise on the assumption that Christianity is true. However, if we assume atheism to be true, the very fact that we talk about meaning cannot be explained, but it can only be explained away.
Wait, if atheism is true, how is it that we can't explain our conceptualization of meaning and purpose? I'm guessing the reason why he thinks this is because he considers all atheists materialists and nihilists at the same time. And so therefore it's ridiculous or illogical to even conceive immaterial things if God or the supernatural doesn't exist. It's so plainly obvious that he is completely wrong about what atheism is at its core. So I don't understand how you can come to a correct conclusion, or at least a non-fucked up conclusion, by starting off from a really horrible position that's baseless. It's not based on facts. It's not based on evidence.
But hey, then again, rational explanations have never been a strength of atheists in the first place. So I guess there's really no surprise to that.
Are you serious?
So that's going to be it for the video tonight. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about his proposition that atheism is illogical and meaningless. You must be lying to yourself about it, because it's inconsistent and illogical to be an atheist and to think that you have meaning. So let me know what you think down below. I'd really love to hear it. If you will, before you head out, smash that like button, and I guess I'll talk to you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.